people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. Our recap of the Aussie show that took place earlier today. Motu versus Shannon O'Connell in the women's super bantamweight division. No feel-out process. No feel-out rounds. They got right to it, which was expected. Motu is an action fighter. Shannon O'Connell is an action fighter, so it's going to be all action. You could see that Motu was the physically stronger fighter of the two, backing up Shannon O'Connell, who was looking to create space, put punches in there, as Motu was barreling forward. That's why they were able to get right to it, because neither fighter is the kind of fighter you have to find.
Have to chase.
I want to say that Shannon O'Connell's experience was shining through whenever she would string together a combination, though physically, Motu was noticeably stronger. So when Mia gets in with a punch,
it's eye-catching.
Rapid fire combinations from Shannon O'Connell, hard punches, eye-catching punches from Motu. You could see where this fight was going and what was about to happen. It wasn't going to get better for Shannon O'Connell. Round by round, she was getting overpowered, outfought. Not a fight of finesse by any stretch. Put simply, Shannon O'Connell was outgunned. And in the fourth round, the towel came out, the contest was waved off, and it was over. They had to save Shannon from herself. I'm sure she would have liked to keep going. The way things were going, it wasn't going to get better for Shannon. You could see what was about to happen. So Shannon O'Connell is some years older than Motu. Shannon's pushing 40, whereas Mia, she's 34.
She's in her mid-30s.
Part of the reason that Motu was able to just plow through Shannon O'Connell is the gradual passage of time.
Yeah, Shannon's not the kind of fighter you have to chase, but she's also not as durable as she used to be.
She's up there in age. The assignment will be very different for Motu when she shares the ring with Ellie Scottney. She is still Ellie Scottney's mandatory challenger. She took this fight with Shannon on short notice after the Ellie Scottney fight fell through, after Ellie suffered an injury. Mia didn't want to squander the time, so she kept busy.
Shannon stepped up.
And Mia got her out of there. So where the Ellie Scottney fight will differ from this one is that Mia will be facing a younger, fresher fighter and a faster fighter. Not just faster than Shannon, but faster than Mia. Lighter on her feet with more hand speed.
Foot speed.
And fundamentals. Inside or outside the pocket, Ellie Scottney can be a tricky target. The only drawback for Ellie is that she'll be coming off an injury if and when the time comes. I don't know the nature of the injury, as they never said what happened.
What got injured?
But all things even, landing on Ellie is going to be a lot harder than landing on Shannon was. And that'll be where that fight differs from this one. Though this one, it gives you a good idea of what Motu wants to do to Ellie Scottney and how she's going to approach that fight. She's just going to go right at her. Let her hands go.
Swing for the fences, try to draw Ellie into exchanges, and land big.
It's the gist of it. That'll be the strategy. And it's going to be up to Ellie to work around that aggression. She's going to have a live one in front of her. Congratulations to Motu for racking up another win and another highlight reel knockout. We then come to the main event of that same card, the middleweight title fight for what was just one of Janibek's middleweight titles. The Janibek versus Andre Mikhailovich fight. Feel-out round in the first round. Though I remember things getting spicy towards the end. Andre getting through with a couple of shots. In the second round, he got caught hard. He got hurt. Very sadistic Janibek Alamkanalai, who seemingly could have finished Andre whenever he wanted in the second round, but for whatever reason, chose to prolong it, to punish Andre Mikhailovich, who was out on his feet. His legs were gone.
He was out.
What it reminded me of was the second season of the World Boxing Super Series when Maris Briedis fought Krzysztof Glowacki, and how the guys were basically allowed to fight after the bell rung.
Robert Byrd must not have heard it.
It was like that here with Janibek, with Andre, with referee Katsuhiko Nakamura. Andre got knocked down, and he got knocked down hard. He rose to his feet, but you could see that he was on unsteady legs. His equilibrium is off, and if this fight would have took place somewhere else, they might have waved it off right then and there because he was stumbling around. You could see.
He's off balance.
And all of this is going on after the second round is over. Andre was allowed to survive. My honest opinion, they were giving this kid every opportunity to stay in the fight as best as he could. And all he could do was smother. From the third round onward, it was a messy affair where Andre is falling way in, deep inside the pocket, trying to smother Janibek Alimkhanalai, knowing that he can't contend with him mid-range.
So he's crowding him.
He's not giving himself much room to work, but he's not giving Janibek room to work either, playing him so close to the chest and trying for punches that really aren't getting in or are sailing to the back of Janibek's head. Several attempts to bring over sweeping hooks that Janibek rolled or ducked under as Andre was powering forward, trying to keep the pressure on him and stay close to him as to not give him room to throw punches.
He was smothering. That's all he could do, was smother.
Wasn't getting a whole lot done in there. Each round similar to the last. From the third, fourth, fifth, Andre was just doing the same thing. Janibek is becoming frustrated.
The referee's not doing anything about it.
And he wasn't going to. The ref wasn't going to scold Andre for the roughhouse tactics, the way he's coming in head first, or the excessive holding,
the hitting and holding,
the hooks that are regularly sailing to the back of Janibek Alimkhanalai's head. Good on him that he was able to roll those hooks or get under those hooks.
A frustrating fight to watch.
And I was surprised to see how many times Janibek got under those sweeping hooks and didn't decide to bring a body shot over. It seemed like he was headhunting, trying for uppercuts and hooks upstairs, deep in the pocket, when Andre's body was there.
I was surprised Janibek didn't spend more time targeting his body given how close they were to each other.
Though, as stated, Andre's only hope at this point was to play Janibek close to the chest, push him back, hoping that exhaustion might set in at some point, in effect, exhausting himself, because he was the one getting more and more tired as the fight progressed.
Running on fumes in what was a valiant effort, though failing to get very much done. I was actually surprised that all three judges had Janibek up at the time of the stoppage.
The time of the knockout. I was expecting those scorecards to look a lot more wacky than they did, but apparently Janibek was well ahead in the ninth round.
Well on his way to win a decision.
In a fight where it seemed like the officiating and everything that was going on was all geared towards giving Andre the best chance to win.
The best avenue.
It's heartwarming to talk about his moral victory and how hard he was fighting, trying his best to make a fight of it, but he wasn't actually getting very much done in there, and he took a lot of hard shots.
I heard the commentators talk about how well he's taking the punches, that he's showing a good chin, but I don't agree with that because I think he should have got counted out at the end of the second round.
That's where this contest should have ended, and if it did, well, getting knocked out in 2 rounds, that's not exactly a good advertisement for a solid chin.
A granite chin.
Getting stopped in 2 rounds. So the prediction stuck. Janibek Alimkhanalai knocked out Andre Mikhailovich. It took a lot longer than I thought it would to do it, but he did it.
And it was a little harder than I thought it would be.
But only because Andre was allowed to regularly employ roughhouse tactics without being called out for it.
Not very impressive from Janibek.
I wasn't impressed with how easily he was pushed back by Andre Mikhailovich and his inability to create space in the pocket to put punches in there.
He only really did so intermittently.
Janibek was seemingly the bigger guy in the ring, the bigger of the two, but Andre just constantly pressing forward, laying into Janibek Alimkhanalai, smothering.
I didn't like how Janibek was always getting pushed back.
Seemed like he couldn't hold his ground or didn't have the footwork to maneuver around this kid. Bull and Matador this kid. Use some pivots.
Cut an angle on him. Get to the side of him, because by now you know what he wants to do. He's gonna charge you in a straight line.
Get around him and throw punches from angles where it's hard for him to defend. Janibek won, but I'm not impressed. Would seem the confusion in association with this match continues afterwards. Michael Benson tweeted, Janibek Alimkhanalai knocked out Andre Mikhailovich in the 9th round to defend his IBF middleweight world title. Janibek is also WBO world champion, but the belt was not at stake in this fight. Amid a bizarre conflict, and Janibek could now be stripped of it as a result? If so, Hamza Shiraz, who I've mentioned several times, the number 1 contender, versus Denzel Bentley, the number 2 contender, could be ordered for the newly vacated WBO middleweight title, bringing further division to this division. Veteran boxing scribe Jake Donovan added, to this point, and as previously reported by Ring Magazine in mid-September, there are already rumors of a Hamza Shiraz, Denzel Bentley, December 21st clash. At minimum, would be for the interim WBO title. It wouldn't surprise me to see the full title at stake, that they might strip Janibek of the belt to give it to Hamza.
Mixed feelings.
It might seem like clandestinely they're trying to rob Janibek of his brown belt to give it to Hamza, but don't forget those reports that Janibek was actually offered a Hamza Shiraz fight for something to the tune of $1 million. I remember Jake Donovan said it, Dan Raphael said it, I think Kevin Iole too.
So why didn't he take it?
I think it all depends on when they made him that offer.
How?
If they made him that offer after he collapsed at the weigh-in and this fight was postponed, he wouldn't have been at liberty to take it because he was still on the hook to satisfy a mandatory. And if he was still on the hook to satisfy a mandatory, that would explain why the fight was turned down. Dan Raphael pointed in the direction of Top Rank.
Janibek denied turning down the Shiraz fight. Dan Raphael said it was his promoter that turned it down.
And who promotes Janibek? Top Rank promotes Janibek.
That's the story according to Dan.
And the story now is that for some reason, the WBO might strip Janibek to give his belt to the winner of Shiraz versus Bentley.
In the build-up of this fight, I always felt like they're trying to find a way to get Hamza that brown belt.
Whether it's by going through Janibek for it or going around him, that seems to be the case here, because why would he be stripped of the title if he didn't lose?
Then why strip him?
For what? Maintained throughout that Hamza Shiraz has more potential to turn into a draw in the UK than Janibek has shown here in America. That for all Top Rank's promotion, all their efforts to build this guy as the next Golovkin, it's not working.
They get Hamza a belt, that only adds to his value.
If they take the BO from Janibek to give it to Hamza, there's still a chance that those two guys fight at some point next year. There still is.
Bob promotes Janibek, Frank promotes Hamza. They do business with each other, so that fight could still happen.
But with Hamza, he can bring the attention to the middleweight division that Janibek hasn't been bringing, that Lara hasn't been bringing, or Carlos Adames hasn't been bringing. Hamza has more potential to become a draw than any of those fighters. It's just the truth. And finally, in men's light heavyweight news, per veteran boxing scribe Jake Donovan, confirmed by DAZN, the full Beterbiev versus Bivol undercard will be on its platform in the United States and not pay-per-view. The Beterbiev versus Bivol main event airs on ESPN Plus due to programming rights, but none of the show will any longer appear on pay-per-view in North America. Now, DAZN, as part of your regular subscription, a smart play, because it was already a nuanced situation that gave the consumer the opportunity to skip out on paying for the pay-per-view and just watch the main event. Watch it as part of your ESPN Plus subscription. You're not going to sell many pay-per-views in America in a situation like that. If this card is pay-per-view worthy to anybody, it would have to be the Brits. It would have to be for the Wardley versus Clark rematch, the appearance of Chris Eubank Jr. That might yield some value to the Brits, but to the Americans, that undercard ain't strong enough that you should charge extra for it.
You could bill that as a pay-per-view over there, but not over here.
I remember that Turkey LL Sheikh made an announcement that he was going to be lowering the price point for his Riyadh season shows down to anywhere in between $15 and $20, which is good. I was actually going to pay.
I was going to pay for the undercard.
Would seem that if you're an existing DAZN subscriber, now you don't have to. I say it all the time. Boxing was at its biggest, and boxing was at its best when it was accessible to more people. That's what made it such a big sport. That's what kept it at the forefront of the sporting world in previous eras of boxing. But gradually, over time, the audience got smaller because they tried to turn it into a luxury item to where you have to have premium cable to watch it. And on top of premium cable, some of those fights are going to be closed circuits. Some of those fights are going to be pay-per-views.
It was a slow burn. You didn't notice it right away that the audience for boxing was shrinking. thinking. It took years.
So here we are. The decision to make the undercard part of a regular DAZN subscription is value for money for existing DAZN subscribers and still keeps the card at arm's length to non-DAZN subscribers that if you want to see it, you really want to see it, it's not going to cost you much anyway. The cost of a monthly DAZN sub. You subscribe for a month,
Then cancel if you don't want it.
the way it was, you would have had to go through 2 paywalls, not just one. If you were a non-DAZN subscriber, you first would have had to subscribe to DAZN, then you would have had to purchase the pay-per-view, which would have been priced at $15 to $20, but still, that's 2 paywalls. The way they're doing it now,
It's just one. Subscribe to DAZN, you get to watch the card.
and you'll get a month's worth of boxing on the platform. It's value for money at an affordable price. The school of thought is using this show to bolster subscriptions.
It's smart.
It's necessary. For too long now, especially in the American boxing scene where we pay more for a pay-per-view, we pay more for boxing than anybody. The people within boxing, they must have had it in their heads that they can keep taking and taking without giving anything back to the consumer.
The reason that other sports are bigger in America than boxing is because those other sports don't have as many paywalls. They don't ask you to go into your wallet as many times in the year as boxing does.
And for fights where you know what the outcome is going to be. You know what's going to happen. When you put a Frank Martin in there with a Gervonta Davis, well, what do you think is going to happen? A Caleb Plant or a Demetrius Andrade with a David Benavidez? Who did you have winning those fights?
There's no intrigue.
In previous years, the response to said criticisms has been tantamount to, well, if you don't want it, don't buy it. So people ain't buying it. As a result of people not buying it, that's a lot of eyes you're not getting on your fight, and that's a market that is shrinking.
That's the consequence.
To stimulate this market and recapture the boxing fans' imagination, get people in America watching boxing again, you have to make it accessible. People got bills to pay.
Birthdays, holidays. The holiday season is right around the corner.
And this is a tough economy. People are hurting. You already have to put up a bit of dough just to be subscribed to a lot of platforms these days because everybody's got a streaming platform now. $7 here, $15 there, $20 over there.
It adds up.
It all adds up. To then be asked to pay again? To pay per view? Enough is enough.
It's gotta stop.
Too many pay-per-views, man. There are too many pay-per-views where going in, you know what's gonna happen. So why does it cost so much? To satisfy the fighter's financial demands. Well, what you're demanding does not align with reality.
Got all these demands for fights that no one's demanding. Later on this year, Gervonta Davis is supposed to be fighting Lamont Roach. What do you think that's gonna cost?
The following month, David Benavidez might fight David Morrell on pay-per-view, and what do you think that's gonna cost?
It's ridiculous.
Thus, you can see what the hierarchy of thought was when the people at DAZN and the event coordinators made the decision that this card should be available to all their existing DAZN subscribers at no additional charge. You have to make the sport accessible to people again. Otherwise, it's going to fade away. It's the gist of it. I like the card. I think it's a solid card. I would have paid $15 to see it. But I'm not your average boxing fan. Not every boxing fan is a content creator that covers the sport. So they're not all going to put their money up as easily as I would.
And I don't pay month to month for DAZN. I pay for the annual because it comes out being cheaper. But not everybody's doing that.
So for the ones that ain't, you gotta give them some slack. You gotta throw them a lifeline. You gotta make this stuff accessible to them. Otherwise, it's more trouble than it's worth.